Second is school funding on student achievement. Education is a very important part of everyday life for most Americans, as most students start going to school at the bright age of 5 and graduate at the bright age of 18. As education is very important for people to help them succeed in the United States. The public school system is a route that most people go through, as though some people might choose private schools. Schools with good funding have more money to help their students improve at school, as well as schools with low funding do not have the extra funding to help the students with their student achievement. The low funding in schools districts of public schools have a negative impact on student achievement. Thus, the schools district with higher funding have positive impact on their student achievement. To break this down, what is student achievement? Student achievement is broken down into two things: indirect and indirect measures. Direct measures are like homework, quizzes, reports, and exams that test the knowledge of the students. And then indirect measures are evaluations, student surveys, and alumni surveys. And those are examples. Next is, what is the funding public schools get? So public schools get 11% of their funding from the federal government and 45% of the funding from the state government, and then 44% of the funding from the local government. However, funding does not go straight to the schools, it goes to the school districts. And the wealth of a school district depends on the wealth of the families in that neighborhood, as the local funding, the 44% of local funding is property taxes. In conclusion, that richer neighborhoods have more extra funding than schools in poorer neighborhoods, as the property taxes are not as high. How are school districts made? My example is Florida and New York. In Florida, the districts are large, different segregated neighborhoods that are combined in one. As an example, the metropolitan area of Miami is in one school district in Florida. It's hard to disperse money to schools in lower income neighborhoods who are just seen as a moderate poverty school district, as they're seen just not as a low income school, like medium-ish low income school. However, in New York, the school districts are much smaller and very segregated by income as there are more low poverty districts in New York, but the segregation patterns to make the low funding more regressive. How funding changed over the years? The funding has changed through the years, as in 1920, the local funding represented 80% of the funding of public schools. That changed after 1971. However, today, state and local governments provide like an equal share of funding, federal government provides about 10% of the funding that's given to schools. The difference between school funding is progressive or regressive depends on the policies of the state and the districts. Now, how is funding correlated to student achievement? As the average needed to be spent is $20,000 per pupil. However, the average is actually $13,000 per pupil per student. As it has been studied that increasing the per pupil by $1,000 led to higher test scores with higher graduation rates. What to do with the extra funding? First is to pay the teachers more. That's number one, which can improve the quality of teaching, as students who've been taught by teachers being paid more tend to score higher on national tests. Second is to get extra programs. These extra programs can help students struggling, or it could be paid time for teachers to stay after school to help students. My final thoughts. Personally, extra funding in school nowadays is needed more than ever, as more funding allows each student to get the help they needed and deserve. As our school system is very precious and needs to be protected for the future of the young children that are in the school system now, because they are our future adults. As us now need to protect them so they have a better time in education, need to get more education.